Well, hello again. Welcome everyone to another episode of Ask Pastor Keith. Pastor Keith, how are you today?
Doing all right?
Okay, all right. Well, thank you. And we have our question for today.
Okay.
It is, how do I know if I am loving God with all my heart, mind, soul, and strength?
Yeah, a good question. And first, we need to define what is body and soul and spirit. And the Bible usually divides in three. Sometimes, out of simplicity, they say body and soul. But usually, body, spirit, and soul. By that, we mean soul. Soul is intellect and emotion and will. And that's where a personality lies. And this is supported by our memory. So without memory, you don't have intellect. Without memory, you don't have emotion. Without memory, you don't have willpower. That's why when we see a lot of people with very advanced Alzheimer's disease and all that, it's like a two-dimensional person. It's very difficult to relate to and sustain a relationship. Even those who, spend quite a long time as a family members and all that, it's very difficult to sustain a relationship. So soul is therefore a functional brain, and it lies on the foundation of memory. And that's why sometimes we emphasize inner healing, because the memory has to be healed, especially episodic memory, snapshots and sound bites, and these memory has to be healed for us to respond, properly as men and women of God. Their emotions and their intellect and even willpower is impacted by that. And the spirit is entirely different. That is, spirit has its own realm, or if you want to call that a dimension. So it's not normal that we can feel what spirit is doing, because we have no faculty that feels it or measures it. Sometimes, but when God is moving powerfully in spirit, He lets us know by the emotion. Because the emotion, the soul, is not completely independent of spirit, nor the soul is completely independent of body. That's why we use the word psychosomatic. So what's happening in our soul is impacting our physical sickness and all that. And to that, I'll even add pneumasomatic. The spirit, pneuma, is spirit. What's happening in spirit can have an impact in our body as well. We see that when Jesus was healing this woman who's bent over in the synagogue, and he didn't mince his word. He said she was bound by Satan, and I'm letting her free. And so there is that spiritual aspect of it. What I'm trying to say is it's a convenient way of analyzing body and soul and spirit. But in fact, although they are separate entities, separate elements of a whole person, they are related. They're connected. There's a inner, I wouldn't say changeable, but influence that go back and forth. So what's happening in soul impacts body, and so as what's happening in the spirit impacts our soul and body as well. And these are, holistically, it's one person. It's not like we only love God with our mind, but we don't with our soul. That doesn't make sense. So in order to answer that question, what I believe, I'm actually coherently carrying it out in my body and choices and speeches. And that is, I'm loving God with all my heart and mind and soul and spirit, right? That's what it means. Having said that, I want to say this too. Although our intellect and emotion and will our properties of soul, where our personality lies, our spirit also has the influence of the soul. We hear about people near-death experience, or those who flatline in their brainwave and heartbeat, and they come back to life. We know their brain flatlined a long time, and yet when they're experiencing out-of-body experience, so to speak, their soul rises, their spirit, that is, rises, and yet they retain their personality, their memory, their intellect, and their response seem to hold on to that and to come back. So we know there's an influence, that soulish influence has on the spirit, and spirit's influence on the soul and body as well. So these are not completely independent things. They're moving in that way. However, we have to understand spirit is of different dimension. And that's why only when God opens the eyes, Gehazi was able to look at the surrounding army of angels under Elisha, and so as Balaam couldn't see the angel of the Lord with a sword drawn until he opens his eyes. And so it's a different dimension. So that's why a lot of our even Christianity and even in church, we have become so secular and fleshly in this material dimension only. So we even interpret what is spirit according to our flesh, our material world, emotion. That's about it.
Yeah.
This very soulish religion we have become. But Bible talks about being spiritual. It is a domain of God and the dimension. And sometimes it lets us know. The angels visit the spiritual beings, and they are, they appear as a human being because they're entering into different dimension. And God has a way of doing that. And so we know, like if we are in one dimension, we are a dot, but in two dimension, we can become a line, and three dimension, we can have a volume. In such a way, when the spiritual dimension, reality, comes into our material world, it could have different aspect and appearance and all that. And so we have to understand the spirit is different dimension, but it's part of us. And so we love God as a whole person, right? Not divided way. That's what it means.
Well, thank you for sharing. It is for sure a lot to take in, but I know that this will really help us all to grow in our faith. So thank you for your wisdom. Keep on tuning in, everyone, for these episodes with Pastor Keith. And keep on coming next week and the week after. And we'll see you soon. Bye.